This is maybe a negative point of just using the realistic actual shark footage, because it means you don't get a lot of shots of the sharks eating people, eating the cast, because obviously that didn't happen. The cast all survived. I assume. I haven't looked into that. No, they all worked after this, so they still survived.
I'm sure they all walked off the set.
Yep. There were no lawsuits involved. So using the real footage of sharks, great. It looks very realistic because it's a real shark. We all remember some of the less realistic scenes from Deep Blue Sea and other films. This does not have that problem. I applaud the use of real sharks, but we just miss out on the attacking shots, shall we say, the eating shots. There are a few shots of like a shark swimming in the foreground, and we have our cast in the background splashing around. So they were in the water with them. Could be to stop people, but yeah, it's well done.
I mean, to be like just an additional point though, if you really want eating shots and from an Australian film, I don't know if you guys have covered Bait yet.
Yes,
but yeah, so
yeah, Bait, wonderful film. Terrible CGI, but wonderful film. Some of the worst CGI I've ever seen in the opening scene of the shark jumping up through the jet ski. I think. Well, yeah, we've covered that. I really enjoyed just I really enjoyed just the nonsense of there's a shark in a supermarket. That was fun. So with this shark here, it doesn't get anyone, but it kind of knocks one of the floats out of their hands and casts it away. And during the confusion, Matt takes it upon himself to go and get the float, because Matt's a big dummy.
The person, the key to knowing someone's going to, after you've watched enough of these films, person who breaks away from formation first, always.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what the shark's probably not going to attack them as a tight group, but it's going to pick off the straggler. So if Matt had turned around and said, hey, guys, the float's over there, let's go together, they probably would have been fine. But there we go. So the shark gets him, and this is apparently one of the real scenes from the true story of the shark takes his leg. We don't see his leg gone, but he disappears, reappears, missing a leg, and he says he says quite calmly, the shark's taken my leg. I'm no use to you. You should all just go. And then he passes out or dies, and they have to swim away because he's bleeding profusely, and the shark's going to come back. So we get quite an emotional moment here because we have not only his girlfriend, but also his sister are amongst this group, and Luke is his friend. So he is the one who is connected to everybody else in this. And they don't want to leave, but they have to go. So there's quite an emotional scene. One of the more emotional shark movie deaths, I would say.
Is it?
Do you not agree? No?
It is. I mean, because he is like the person who pulls everyone together. And I do agree, but it's also funny because in that sense where it's like you said, like his character is also very thin. So like he's really not said too much during the whole film and nothing too conducive to the whole plot, basically. So it also feels like, he's gone, but in an afterthought, it kind of makes sense, I guess. They kind of like built this character up to that point.
Yeah.
And now these three have to go off on their own now.
Yeah, and we have the real sense of danger. Someone has died, someone that they all knew well. But yeah, it's just his delivery of, my leg's gone, you gotta go. So calmly. So that's the only thing that was at odds to the scene for me. And yeah, as they swim away, the shark comes along and finishes him off. I think he disappears. Yeah. And they just gotta keep going. Now, my issue I had at this point was I had no idea how long they'd been going for. I understand they're not giving us a distance because they wouldn't know how far they'd swum. But they could have at least said a time. Like, we've been swimming for 3 hours or something. That's information I was missing.
Yeah, I guess that would be, when you put it that way, I think that would have been really nice to kind of have an idea about like the time frame that they've had. Cause I guess in general, you would have an idea about like, I mean, I don't go and time my swimming pace, okay? But I mean, you kind of have an idea about like, oh, if you pass like 2 hours, well, how many miles would they have kind of slowly paddled through the water.
And to gauge some level of their exhaustion, their energy levels.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, it becomes nighttime. They have to stop swimming because they can't pick a direction at night. The sun goes down. But that's never explained. And I think this is very much shot day for night, because there's a lot of highlights on top of the waves. I can't confirm that. That's just... they do that in Jaws, so that's fine. There's not a problem to shoot day for night. It's cheaper. They film it, they make everything dark. So night descends, night falls, and they have to take a break, and they're also kind of getting a bit delirious. They're hearing things. Maybe they're all paranoid, and so they just have to. But we don't see them decide we have to stop and fall asleep. We just kind of see them stop, and then they wake up. Which, fair enough. It's kind of a good thing they didn't fall asleep one by one and end up stranded across the ocean. Yeah, they wake up floating on these the floaties. Still amazed that worked, but I believe it. Fine, all good. And they see in the distance there's some land, and I thought this might have been like a mirage kind of thing. Is that really there? But no, it is really there. So.
Because, I think one of the issues I had with the film, from the first time I saw it would have been this scene where they wake up, and it's not only the miraculousness of how they're still on these flotation devices, but also the fact that when they were on the other side, like swimming here, they were saying that the water, when still, is pushing you out to sea. So, to me, when they were floating on there, I was kind of like in the back of my mind, I was like, well, but why aren't they floating out to sea?
They could be anywhere.
Why have they suddenly, miraculously gone closer to the island? But, I mean, water, right? Maybe different places, different currents. Yeah. Who knows, right?
I don't think the land they see is the island they were heading for. I think it's just some outcrop of the coral reef.
Basically, right?
Yeah. So they find this little bit of a rock jutting up. They take a little break on that to kind of see where they're going. Not for very long. Get back in the water, start swimming, and then you get another like, oh, is there a shark? Is there a shark? Is there a shark? And it just takes Susie. She just disappears. Goes down, pops back up. Luke swims towards her. Before he gets there, she's gone. So that's Susie.
Well, I mean, before then they kind of tricked them a little, right? The whole directing was kind of like, oh, we're going to do another trick on you. Yeah. The dolphin, right? I still remember that part. I never remember where that dolphin appears, but I keep remembering that the dolphin shows up at one point.
Yes, I think that they see a dolphin. I was expecting, because I've seen several shark films at this point, I was expecting the shark to come out and eat the dolphin. Like, it's a dolphin. Oh, it's a dolphin. It's a dolphin. Shark was what I was expecting. Because I didn't realise it was all live action footage at that point. I was expecting a big CGI shark to just jump out and bite a dolphin in half. But no, instead the shark arrives in place of the dolphin, and that's when Susie meets her end and gets eaten by lots of little fish. She just kind of becomes a cloud of blood at one point, and the fish are all swarming around her, and Luke is watching. So I just realised that for the image on Instagram and stuff for this, I tend to have like 4 different shots taken from the film, and they're all going to be very similar for this film. I think there's not a lot of variation in the visuals.
Considering like 45 minutes of the water was just them like an open sea floating around.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. It might be quite a dull image this week. So Luke and Kate are only survivors at this point. I'm thinking these two are going to survive because they're the ones who have got the estranged relationship that's going to rekindle. They're going to like survive and have this bond that will cement their time together. So they head for the land. They've got one float device between them, and they swim and they swim. They stop off at another little reef for a little while, but they just keep going, and they make it. They get there with a shark right behind them. They get but it's not easy getting on the land. There's a smooth rock wall, and they can't climb it. So Luke manages to push Kate up. She is fully exhausted at this point. Understandably, they've been swimming for over a day. So she doesn't have the energy to pull him up. And the shark gets him. Which, he's gone. Which I was not expecting. I thought he was going to live. Did you find this frustrating?
A bit. I mean, because I don't know. I think, okay, so there's a scene you just talked about, okay? A good thing and a bad thing about it, okay? But just get it out of my system since,
Yeah,
we're
by all
talking
means.
about it. And the good thing about it is that usually when you come to scenes like this where you're all perched on a rock, you're resting, and there's some kind of like unresolved conflict between these people, they'll sit down and talk about their feelings and be like, oh, now is the time to be all emotional and hash it out, before you die type of thing. And I'm happy they didn't do that because that sort of stuff really bothers me when it comes to like disaster movies or like creature features. Like, you're about to die. Like, literally, there's a shark around you. Please don't do this. So I'm really happy they didn't do that.
Yeah, now is not the time for big speeches, Sam Jackson.
Yeah. And then, but this one is like, I kind of expected Luke to die. I had hoped he would kind of like, most of these times, the heroes they'll get dragged down and then they'll spontaneously produce a knife out of their pocket or something and then stab the shark's eye or something, right? You'd expect something like that. But I guess they had to do it this way also because obviously now that you're mentioning that, they did, I also, when I watched it the first time, I didn't know that they just used kind of documentary footage, real live footage. So obviously they didn't have the means to do that because that would mean they would actually need to have some type of CGI shark or something for him to do that. So it kind of made sense that he died. I think it's kind of sad because I think the whole film, Kate isn't really so impressive of a character.
No.
But at the same time, he did manage to do his job where, like, using his knowledge of being in the waters and stuff, he managed to save her. So I guess that's okay.
I suppose had he survived as well, had he, like, succeeded and saved her, it could have felt like she was his prize. Like, you did it! You got these people out! Your reward is this woman! Which I don't like when films do that. That's the Ready Player One kind of thing.
So yeah, so like when that's a really good point, and I think that's why you kind of had to give like the concept where not everybody lives, because a lot of times these things, the end game is always like 2 people or 3 people or some type of survivor mat. It's rarely one person. It's rarely like the hero is the one because in this one, I guess Luke is considered the hero because he's the one with all the knowledge and all the all the know-hows, right? Yeah. And he ends up if he had survived, it would make sense. But when he does it, and I guess it has more of a shock value that, like there was 2 options. One, she suddenly found the strength and pulled him out of the water, or like 2 is just she didn't make it and then just the shark would snatch him out from under her type of thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that could have happened was that they pulled both of them back in the water, and that would have been really fun too.
Yeah, but, well, we needed... someone had to survive to tell the story. So we needed to have somebody, I guess. So yeah, so Kate makes it, Luke doesn't, and then she makes it onto the land and kind of falls to her knees, screaming and yelling, as is very understandable given the very stressful situation she's just been through. And then we find from the postscript that she was found the next day, and Warren never was. And then credits. That's it. That's the film. That's the Reef. Yeah. In your like ranking of shark films, how high do you put this?
I think that if I never went back to watch this, it would be ranked fairly highly. But because I've rewatched The Reef in like 2 times in a year so far, it's a lot lower than it was when I first saw it the first time. Which is, I can't argue that shark films aren't great for rewatches, but like, I don't know. I mean, I watch a lot of shark movies in general. Like, not the, I watched a few like Asylum crappy ones, like, 2-headed shark attack and stuff like that. But The Reef is still pretty high. I think like it's kind of like middling. It's not the low part. I have other films, I think like, Shark Night or something I don't really like. That's kind of low on my list.
Yep.
Like, The Reef is kind of in the middle right now. If I watch it again, maybe it'll drop a little bit more, but I don't plan on watching The Reef again for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting. We did a show on Shark Night, and I really wasn't a fan of that. That's a very different film to The Reef, because Shark Night is
Yes.
is trying to have fun, I think.
Yes.
Whereas the Reef is not